They once ruled Ice Age Europe, a powerful species shaped by cold winds and stone. And then, as if erased from the pages of time, they vanished. The Neanderthals, humanity's ancient cousins, disappeared almost overnight, leaving behind only fragments of bone and whispers in the dust. For more than a century, scientists have asked the same haunting question: what really happened to them? In 1915, British anatomist Sir Arthur Keith wrote that Neanderthals were replaced by a more virile form of man. He believed they were not our ancestors but a different branch altogether, a people extinguished by the rise of modern humans. It was an idea born in the Age of Empires, when strength and progress defined survival. But what if Keith's vision missed something far more intimate, something hidden not in the skeletons of warriors and hunters, but in the tiny, fragile bones of infants? Deep beneath layers of ancient earth, archaeologists have uncovered the smallest and most tender traces of the Neanderthal world, the graves of their children, buried with care, sometimes curled in the fetal position, sometimes with gifts beside them. These little ones tell a story that is soft, sorrowful, and profoundly human. If the Neanderthals buried their babies with such tenderness, were they truly so different from us? Or have we been staring at our own reflection all along, mistaking empathy for weakness and love for something uniquely human? Join this journey from the caves of France to the highlands of the Middle East. From forgotten excavations to discoveries as recent as 2024, where science, emotion, and memory merge to reveal a truth we've long overlooked, that even 50,000 years ago, love left its mark in the soil. The story begins in the rolling hills of Dordogne, France, in the year 1914. Just before the world was torn apart by war, a team of archaeologists working in a small cave called Le Moustier made an extraordinary discovery: the delicate bones of a Neanderthal infant, no more than 4 months old. It was a moment of quiet wonder, a glimpse into a family's grief frozen in time. But history intervened. As the First World War swept across Europe, the bones disappeared into museum storerooms and the chaos of conflict. For decades, the tiny skeleton was thought lost forever. Then, in 1996, French anthropologist Bruno Marais stumbled upon a forgotten box inside the National Museum of Prehistory. Inside, embedded in ancient soil, were the remains of that same baby. The sediments matched Le Moustier's cave exactly, confirming its identity. After more than 80 years, the child had returned to history, a voice from the Ice Age, silent but powerful. Even in infancy, the skeleton showed traits that defined the Neanderthal form: a long, low skull, wide cheekbones, and sturdy limbs built for strength. The bones were placed carefully, curled in the fetal position, surrounded by flint tools and animal fragment, signs that this was no accident of nature. Someone had dug a grave. Someone had chosen this posture. Someone had cared. The fetal pose speaks across millennia. To us, it feels like a gesture of return back to the warmth of the womb or to the embrace of the earth. It is a symbol of peace, of a final sleep. Across the continent, in Mesmaïskaya Cave in the Caucasus Mountains of Russia, another Neanderthal newborn was found, its body preserved in similar soil. Modern analysis revealed the same early developing features: broad ribs, strong jaws, showing that the Neanderthal body was distinct from birth. Their strength began early, and yet even the strongest among them treated their weakest with tenderness. Even in a world of stone and cold, this baby was not abandoned to time. It was laid to rest by hands that trembled, perhaps, with sorrow. In that moment of farewell, we glimpse something achingly familiar: the way love endures, even at the edge of extinction. Not far from the quiet valleys of southern France lies a small limestone cave that changed how we see our ancient cousins. In 1908, deep inside La Chapelle-aux-Saintes, workers uncovered the bones of a Neanderthal adult, and near him, fragments belonging to children. It was one of the earliest complete Neanderthal skeletons ever found. But from the very beginning, it sparked controversy. The French paleontologist Marcelin Boule, the first to describe the find, believed there was nothing humanly deliberate about it. To him, the bones lay where they fell, the result of a collapsing cave or the random work of time. His drawings portrayed the Neanderthal as brutish, stooped, almost ape-like, a being closer to beast than to man. Boulet's view would dominate science for decades, casting a shadow over every discovery that hinted at Neanderthal emotion or ceremony. But not everyone agreed. The British anatomist Sir Arthur Keith, writing a few years later, urged caution. He saw something different in the posture of the bones, in the way the skeleton had been protected from the elements. Keith suggested that perhaps, just perhaps, this was no accident. Perhaps the Neanderthals had buried their dead intentionally, a quiet act of meaning, a first flicker of symbolic thought. A century later, new excavations returned to that same cave with modern tools and open minds. Geologists traced the stratigraphy, archaeologists mapped the orientation of the skeleton and the absence of animal disturbance. The evidence was overwhelming. The grave had been dug by hand, the body positioned, the soil filled back with care. And nearby lay the remains of children, confirming that this was a resting place shared across ages, not a chaotic heap of bones. Recent research by Ella Bean and Omri Barzilai in 2024 expanded this understanding even further. Across the Levant, they found that Neanderthals buried their infants more often than early Homo sapiens did, suggesting that mourning the young was a central part of Neanderthal life. Through this, a simple truth emerges. Care did not end with death. It continued in ritual, in memory, in the quiet labor of those who knelt to cover the dead with earth. In that gesture, hands pressing soil over a loved one, we find the pulse of empathy that binds all of humanity, past and present. Far to the southwest of France, in the limestone heart of La Ferracie Cave, archaeologists uncovered one of the most haunting discoveries of all: the grave of a 2-year-old Neanderthal child, known today as La Ferracie 8. The burial was unlike anything seen before. The child had been laid in a carefully dug pit, its head turned eastward, resting slightly higher than the body, as if lifted toward the rising sun. Around the grave lay stone tools and faint traces of ochre, silent witnesses to a deliberate, practiced ritual. This was not the chaos of chance, but the choreography of care. Imagine the quiet darkness of that cave, the flicker of firelight on rock, adults kneeling, shaping the earth, arranging the small body with intention. Even after 41,000 years, the order of that moment endures: the symmetry, the gentleness, the sense of farewell. Thousands of miles away, in the Amud cave of northern Israel, another scene unfolded. There, a 10-month-old infant was placed on its side in a shallow niche carved into the rock. Resting upon the baby's chest was the jawbone of a red deer, an object far too symbolic to be coincidence. Archaeologists believe it was a gift, perhaps a token of protection, or an offering meant to guide the child into whatever came next. Objects like these bones, stones, tools were more than materials. They were prayers in physical form, the earliest expressions of meaning. They tell us that the Neanderthals understood something beyond the tangible, that life continues in memory, and that remembrance required gesture. Modern studies, including one published in 2024, reveal an even deeper contrast. While early Homo sapiens of the Levant often buried their dead outside caves, the Neanderthals chose to bury theirs within deeper inside the shadows. Perhaps they believed caves were sacred spaces, wombs of stone that cradled both the living and the dead. In doing so, they may also have been making a quiet declaration: this place is ours. Each burial carved into the cave floor was not just a resting place, but a claim of belonging, a way to root identity in the earth itself. Every child laid to rest at La Ferracie or Amud was more than a lost life. Each was a promise kept, a memory preserved, and a message left behind. We lived here, we loved here, and we remembered our own. In the limestone valleys of northern Syria lies Dederia Cave, a place that once sheltered Neanderthal families through cold and storm. Within its quiet chambers, archaeologists discovered the tiny skeleton of a baby only a few months old, resting on its back as if in peaceful sleep. Its arms stretched outward, its small legs gently bent. Near the child's head lay a rectangular block of limestone, and above its heart, a triangular flint tool, both deliberately placed, positioned with care, and covered by a layer of clean, sterile soil, unlike the cave's natural sediment. This was no random burial. It was a ritual act, deliberate and meaningful, carved into the rhythm of their daily life. The evidence is unmistakable. Someone had knelt there, scooped away the soil, and laid the infant down with quiet purpose. They understood loss. They sought meaning in gesture, and this understanding of care extended beyond death. In 2024, scientists in Spain revealed the fossil of a Neanderthal child born with Down syndrome. That child lived to about 6 years old, a feat impossible without long-term care and protection. It means that others in the group fed, guarded, and loved a child who could not have survived alone. Such devotion speaks of something profound, a community organized not by dominance or survival alone, but by empathy. They carried the weak. They mourned the lost. They remembered the young. Compassion, it seems, did not begin with us. It began long before in caves like Dederia, where hands once cradled fragile lives and hearts dared to hope that death was not the end. If they knew how to love and protect their weakest, perhaps they also knew how to dream, how to believe in something beyond the darkness. From Le Moustier to La Ferraci, from the shadowed caves of Amud to the quiet cradle of Dederia, each tiny grave tells the same story, a story of love, memory, and hope. Across thousands of miles and tens of thousands of years, the gestures remain unchanged. A body carefully placed, a stone positioned with intention, a silent pause before the earth is pressed closed. When we lay flowers on a grave today, we are not inventing something new. We are continuing a tradition that began over 50,000 years ago, when another kind of human knelt in the darkness and whispered their goodbyes. Their world may have been colder, harder, and shorter, but the language of grief was already fluent. These burials are not just remnants of a species long gone, they are bridges between instinct and culture, between survival and remembrance. They remind us that empathy and ritual were not late inventions of civilization, but ancient lights that burned within us from the start. If the Neanderthals once knew sorrow and compassion, if they cared for their children and dreamed of something beyond death, then kindness is not new. It is our oldest inheritance, a thread of humanity that runs unbroken through time. So when you think of evolution, don't picture bones and tools alone. Picture hands, tender and trembling, lowering a child into the earth. That, too, is part of our story. Share this story, so others may see that the history of our species was never written only in stone, but also, and most beautifully, in love.